And so, um, from what you're telling me, you're beginning to put in uh, the right effort, and you are beginning to get some results from it. Is that correct to say?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. All right. So, uh, going in that direction, we need to sort of go over again and deepen the understanding of the practice, perhaps by taking different points of view in it. And in fact, that's a way of speaking about it. That everything kind of fits together, and when it does for the student, then they begin to say, "Ah, okay, now I know what's going on." All
Hmm.
right, and so I still see that little bit of doubt in your mind
About
that you
what?
have that you haven't come fully um, uh, to get it yet. So
Yeah.
we're going to cover it a little bit more. Though you're going in the right direction. Going back to the Eightfold Noble Path, we have to begin to understand about what one's right view is. Now, in the beginning, the right view was is that I can see enough of what's going on and know that I can get out of it, and so I get into meditation and that kind of stuff. But as we practice, we want to sort of, um, let us say, refine that ability to have the noble view of being able to see things at a kind of a higher level. Now, in that regard, that means that we begin to see things not from the perspective that we have had for many years, but we begin to take a new perspective of things. The one's right view begins to see things in a new way. And when I use the word perspective, I'm actually pointing in the direction of what we refer to as perception. And perception is that system that we use to make sense out of what we actually see. The real world we don't really live in. We live in a perceived world. That we take something from the site itself and process it. And part of that processing is stuff that comes out of our past. And that with the practice of the Dhamma, the whole idea is let's start using newer data to process this present moment. Stuff that's really more real. An example of that is let's process it with Dhamma rather than process it through what happened to us when we were children.
So is
To
that
begin
kind
to
of
take a new attitude. Go ahead.
the feeling? Okay, it's like so there will be like a physical sensation, and then that seems to follow like I hesitate to say, but like kind of a constriction where it feels like my mind's starting to kind of process that physical sensation. Like and it's like almost a copycat of like whatever physical like sensation it is. So like maybe if I'm hearing something um, like happening in the world, then I would hear that there'd be some processing, and then there would be like an internal hearing of it almost that also has like a bunch of other stuff blended into it.
Right. And at its highest level, we can see then that we would call it two different kinds of consciousness. One kind of consciousness is the consciousness of the eye and the object and just to see the seeing itself. But
Mm-hmm.
we also use language differently in the sense of rather than I see the tree, or even what I actually see is not tree yet. I've had to do some processing to get it into the form of a tree that I can tell you it's a tree. But there's a higher level of processing that comes in with a kind of seeing that means, oh, I see what you mean, or I understand. Now, the funny thing about understand, what does that mean? I would think it would be, oh, I overstand now, because I'm standing over it rather than being caught in it. But in any case, the whole quality of one's right view then is to taking a higher view so that we can begin to make new choices. And one of the choices that we're going to start making is a choice about how we perceive things.
Okay. Can I close my
Okay?
windows real quick? I don't want to disturb my neighbors. I'm sorry. I
You're going
forgot.
to do what?
Can I close my windows real quick? It'll just take a
Okay.
second. Sorry about that. I'm on Australia time this week, so
It's a little noisy here. I don't have any control over the men out there doing their job.
oh, it's fine. I was just worried about my neighbors and talking too loud. Okay, so we were talking
Okay.
about right view.
Yes, and we're talking about how right view then, by being able to change our views of things, we begin to change the way we perceive things, that our perception begins to change.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of the way that we would look at that is that we no longer see the things the way that we saw them before our practice of meditation, the ordinary life. Now we're beginning to perceive and practice things at a higher or a different level. And so uh, part of that then has the quality of coming then out of our world view or world stance. And normally the world view or the world stance is also who am I or my personality. And a big aspect of what the teaching of the Buddha is to change our attitude based upon view, to change our attitude about who we think we are. And an example of that would be, I need help. Another example would be, I'm angry. But in a more Dhamma language, we would say, no, there is anger, but you are not the anger. So you cannot say, I am angry. You can say, there is anger.
So we're kind of implying there's a the anger exists, but it's not us.
It's not me.
Yeah, it's not me. There's some sort of like observer involved. I don't know. Is that the right
Yes,
word?
you become more of an observer. This is what we could call mindfulness. Mindfulness means to become the observer, to start watching what's going on. And a major quality of that then is that we become disassociated from that which we used to perceive as me.
Mm-hmm.
And now we don't perceive it as me anymore, especially since this new observer can start off with a clean slate, basically every time. So where the old self had a lot of baggage that we carried around, and that baggage was all of our ideas and our beliefs and all of our feelings and the method and manner with which we spoke.
So we talked about the sense stores last time. The six sense stores last time.
Right.
And so it's kind of from what you're saying now, it seems like there's a certain like right view that we want to adopt where there's like some distance between us and the sense stores. So like
Actually, one of the ways of looking at that is that I am not that sixth sense door. I am not that mind that burns and spins.
okay, so is it that as like people and living in society, we generally get wrapped up in the sense store of the mind,
Yes.
and we don't get wrapped up in like the other sense stores, like I don't know, touch or like sight or something to the same
Well, I'm not
level.
sure that that's true,
Okay,
but because you have certain kinds of people that would be artists that really get wrapped up in visual art and
that's true.
artistry. There are
Yeah.
people who really get wrapped up into sound in the sense of electronic remanufacturing of sound as opposed to musicians. In other words, there's audio engineers, but boy, are they really into listening very closely, and they really like it. They're the ones that want to take the hiss out of the records and all of that kind of stuff.
So it can be our relationship with any of those, like our view towards any of
Martial
those six
artists are
doors.
really into the body. Dancers are really into the body,
Okay, great.
and so
So
they
it's
then strongly identify with that sense.
mhm.
But
But
most
it's
people are mostly in the mind, and so they identify with who I am is based upon what I think and what I remember and how I feel and that kind of stuff.
okay, yeah. So it kind of comes down to that view part that you're talking about. Like it's our view towards those things, and we're trying to we're trying to dissociate a little bit our sense of self from that.
Right, exactly. And so the word that I use, view, is kind of a weak word. But that's the word that we're kind of stuck with the English translation of the actual Pali word is ditti. And right view is samadhi. There's, by the way, a major, almost humorous curiosity in the Majjhima Nikaya, and that is Sutta number 9, and the name of the sutta is Samadhi, and you would expect them to talk about right view in the sense of the Eightfold Noble Path, but that whole sutta is devoted to one thing and one thing only, and that is Paticca Samuppada. And
The
so then
teachers
the pardon?
said Samuppada.
Yeah, Paticca Samuppada. The sequence called dependent origination.
Oh, yeah.
The way that I talk about it is the way the mind works. Okay, that you do this with this, and then that happens, and then you do this, and it's like dominoes falling down. And at one particular point, feelings arise. And at that point, if those feelings are ignorant, then we will act ignorantly, like we've always done, which means by habit. In
Mhm.
this regard, ignorantly would mean by habit, and wisely would mean by no, we have now control over it, and we do not have to follow the habit.
Okay, and by dependent origination, that's kind of like you have one thought, and then that leads to like two or three thoughts, and so on and so on. Like it almost sounds like there has to be some like base, some like single pointedness down at the bottom.
Well, okay, yes, let's say that, but you're looking at it from a long-term process to where the real teaching of Samutpada is the entire sequence of Samutpada happens within that one thought.
The whole Okay, how could you explain that, please? Or
Uh,
if it's sorry if
Let
it's too
us
much,
say
it's fine.
eventually I
Yeah.
will.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's fine.
Yes, eventually we will. Let's get back, in fact, to what we're. When I talk about perception, in fact, I am actually talking about paticca samuppada
Hmm.
because consciousness of the I then will give us perception to where we're trying to figure out what it is that we see. So the process of figuring out what it is that we see is called perception, and sometimes we get stuck into perception because we can't figure out what it is that we're looking at.
Yeah, so
But a lot
perceptions.
of visual art is about that. A lot of visual art has to do with tricking the observer into becoming confused about what they're seeing. There's a whole, I mean, Escher, that's Escher. That's Escher's whole life.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's like it's really malleable among people. Like there's different ways of looking at one particular thing. It's like, I mean, you could look at the same painting and have wildly different feelings about it.
Hmm. Exactly. Having wildly different feelings about it because people either like or don't like their perception being messed with.
Hmm.
The stairs that start off correct are not supposed to wind up being upside down by the time they reach the next floor.
Oh, that's actually I forgot who Escher was. I was thinking like Pollock or something. But yeah, like
Uh-huh.
the stairways that go to the wrong place. Yeah,
Right. And Salvador Dali with his melting clocks,
yeah.
showing that time is an illusion also. All right. So visual art is pointing in that direction, that our perceptions are actually quite malleable, and that it depends upon opening our views so that we can get a new perception of things. And the reason I'm kind of harping on this is because that right view, working with it in the right direction, winds up giving us right attitude, which is also in fact, right attitude and right view work so close together that they're listed one after another in almost every list of the Eightfold Noble Path.
Mhm.
But the Buddha talks about, in order to develop right attitude, we need to add right sati and right effort, because it is going to take some effort to change our attitude and our worldview about things.
Mhm.
And we could say that that attitude change is basically an attitude change from being a loser into being a winner.
Mhm.
Now the question is, how much meditation does it take to do that?
Do you want me to
To
answer?
change one's position, to change one's worldview from being a loser into being a winner. How much meditation time does that take? Yes.
0?
Right, you're getting really, really close, maybe within a second or so.
Yeah. Oh, I guess there's some time, but yeah.
So um, that's right. As soon as as soon as you recognize you have that choice, we can change that whole attitude.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean,
Okay.
it does seem like our view, our perception of something, we
Uh,
like have control over when we admit it. Like, it's hard for me to change my view when I say this is a hard thing to do. But it's easy when I'm saying, like, well, maybe it's not hard. And then,
yeah, maybe it's not hard. Maybe the reason that we say it's hard is because, number one, I have doubt that I can do it. Okay. But that's actually part of the change of attitude from I doubt I can do it into yes, I can do it.
yeah, I mean, it seems like when I sit down to meditate, that seems like a huge factor is like, whether or not I feel like a lion or like if I feel like this meditation is going to be hard.
Okay. Well, that feeling like this meditation is going to be hard is exactly what I'm looking for when we talk about the perception of the normal frame of reference that humans take on is the position of being one down, or this is hard work,
Mhm.
or I'll try, or all of that kind of language that we use because basically because of the doubt that we have about whether we're up to the task or not.
Mhm.
That in fact, doubt is a major, major part of the teaching of the Buddha, where Christianity tries to brush it aside. They try to say, oh, you got to have faith. But Buddhism has nothing to do with that. You don't have to have faith. And in fact, please, no faith allowed.
Yeah,
That
that's
what
true.
we want confident experience. You've had the experience. You can see it for yourself and you know. And that so this is the way that we would proceed is from that gaining of the knowledge that you're okay, that you don't belong in that one down position.
Mhm.
But we why then do you find everyone, basically everyone, let us say at least 99 point ever how many nines you want as a percentage after that, uh, humans are basically unhappy? Why do you think that's true? Well, one of the hints that we have is that little kids really enjoy their life. They're creative and they're curious and they draw on walls and they have fun and they giggle with laughter and scream with glee. And then the adults come in the room and things change.
Mhm.
Okay. And every time the adult comes in the room, the child has got to stop doing what he wants to do, gleefully playing, and do what the adult tells him to do. Pretty soon, every little child grows his own adult, inside of his own mind to tell him what to do. This is our attachments to rites, rules, and rituals. The Buddha talks all about it. It's got a phrase called Sila Bhatta Paramasa, and in fact, this is the second fetter. The first fetter is who are we? Are the clinging to personality. But when so the first fetter is to give up that personality view, which means number one, I'm not who I thought I was. I can change.
What's the difference between a fetter and a hindrance?
The fetters are deep and they take a while to work with. The hindrance is what's going on right now in the mind
Oh,
that's
okay.
preventing us from feeling good.
Okay, that makes so. A hindrance is like when we say "aha, I see you, Mara." That's a hindrance. But fetters are like these kind of like deeply
These are part
embedded,
of these perceptions or these world views that we're talking about.
embedded into right view. Okay.
Okay, the bottom of right view is to come to understand that our understanding of the world is fallacious. And part of the fallacy that we're making is I thought I knew who I was, and people will then list a list of jobs. They'll give you a resume to define who they are, right? A resume will never define who a person is.
Yeah.
So we do, in fact, whatever we write down, and you take all the time you want and write down a complete list of everything about who you are, and then 1 year later do that again and see if it's the same list. It's not going to be the same list. Because people change, but they don't want to know the change. They get attached to an idea about how things are, and in fact, that clinging to that idea is what slows them down from the changes, rapid changes, that they could be making in their life.
Okay. And so, I mean, yeah, I guess this sort of knowings, that's like a thinking sort of knowing versus the knowing that we're going for is a wisdom.
Right, exactly. Well,
And the
wisdom is
wisdom
a whole
doesn't
lot
come.
more, is direct looking at it, directly seeing, a directly observation, to where our perceptions then of these views are generally stored. That in fact you could go so far as to say ultimately the most noble right view never takes any stored data. He's not drawing on any conclusions he makes, he just makes a new observation. That wisdom is the faculty of investigation. It's the investigation of state's enlightenment factor. That's what real one's right view is to look at what's really going on here rather than trying to draw what I think I know what this place is all about out of my old memory banks.
Mhm.
So it's actually on a regular basis taking a good fresh look at what's really going on.
Taking a good fresh look. And okay, yeah, I guess like the question I would have would be like, okay, so if you're like just taking all the inputs in, like then we would have like one, okay, let's say we, I don't, someone acting out of wisdom or like could still be having thoughts to help them like process whatever else is
We
coming.
want to have thoughts. There is no reason why anyone should go into a thoughtless state. And let us say that somehow or another you did, and then you come back into the thought state so that you can see and do and recognize. You might wake up in the hospital or the ICU. You might wake up in the morgue. Depends upon how rigged out the people have gotten because you won't respond to them.
Okay, so yeah, it's not about, having zero thoughts at all because that'd be pretty problematic. It's more about the view, our
It's
relationship with
more
those
about being
thoughts.
able to control your thoughts so you can
Yes,
have
not
the
being,
thoughts that are useful, worthwhile, fit the situation, rather than having the old kind of thoughts we had that are often problematic.
yeah, so like rather than saying like I am a software engineer or something like that, the thoughts would be like to help us. They wouldn't be like identity based, I guess. It would
I'm a
be like
human.
I'm a human. It'd be like true things.
Hmm.
I don't know what the true things are, but yeah, like after you
Hmm.
get to a point, you can
Or if you
understand
want to
yourself.
get even higher and more global than that, I'm an animal.
Yeah. So it's that's the sort of knowledge, like it's the wisdom side of it, though, not just like thinking I'm an animal or like thinking I'm a whatever.
No, to recognize the reality of the situation, and then we can paste humorous labels on the fact that we're seeing something in a really broad context.
Yes, gotcha.
So this is the whole idea of one's right view, is that when we broaden our context, we begin to see how clear it is that we in fact do have choices. We do have choices. And Bhikkhu Buddhadasa makes it pretty stark in the sense of you have the choice of either your old karma or to come out of it, which is actually basically the teaching of the Buddha also, dukkha, dukkha nirodha, your choice. But in the context of what we're talking about, loser or winner, your choice.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess like one thing that kind of gets to me is that it seems like a lot of people get to like the point with their practice, and it seems like they just say that everything's deterministic, like it's everything just kind of like, I don't know, all the actions we take are kind of like predetermined, but this
Everything,
is
everything is predetermined
everything
within
is
the
predetermined.
context of the personality. If you get stuck in a set of habits and you keep habiting your habit through life, then wherever those habits will take you, it's already determined because you're being driven by habit. An example of that, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword.
Okay, but there is a choice there, and we have the choice to like
That's
act.
what the real teachings of the Buddha is. That's the real wisdom is you've got a choice.
Mhm.
And that choice actually comes every instant or every moment. It's a moment by moment, every moment that comes by, every new now that comes by, you have that choice.
So, okay, yeah, I mean, I don't want to sidetrack too far, but like, so it seems like we have to, okay, so like we have the right view. We also need to be able to like take the right effort. In between that, like we need to have the energy to be able to like execute that effort. And
Okay?
so you have to like cultivate like PD. Is that the energy, the like ability to decide to
Yes?
step out?
I'm actually about to get around to that very word.
Okay.
But you're right, we do have to have that energy, and where that energy comes from is basically taking those long, deep breaths to energize the body, which also cleans out the blood because the lungs, the exhale, is an enormous purification process also.
Mhm.
Okay, so um, the in and the out breathing is an important quality of anapanasati. It also, uh, the interesting thing about it is that people who practice anapanasati and say, "Oh, you just have to watch the breath," is missing the plotting step of line by line by line. The Buddha is insisting that everything has to be tied to the breath, so that in the beginning, our understanding is that with every breath, on the in breath, we know that it's an in breath,
Mhm.
and that every out breath, we know that it's an out breath. This is actually points of sati. But then later into it, when we get into gladdening the mind, which is actually a practice that we use and a skill to be developed, we do that while mindfully breathing in. So and it's stated like this, that we gladden the mind, we practice or we develop the skill of gladdening the mind while we're mindfully breathing in, and then we skillfully gladden the mind while we mindfully breathe out. It could not be more impacting than that, except that this is every one of the statements. So when we go to the statement of sukha, to develop sukha, we do that line by line, that we mindfully, skillfully develop sukha while we mindfully breathe in. And then we develop sukha while we mindfully breathe out.
So we develop
Let me
sukha
give you a
in and out.
demonstration of that.
Hmm.
Okay? As I breathe in, I can have thoughts like, because this is a thinking meditation, this is not comatose. Okay, this is not second jhana. We're developing first jhana right now. We really want to work with controlling that mind. And so we begin to have the kind of thoughts, intentionally so, of, oh, this is a really good moment. And as I breathe out, oh, this is relaxing. And as I breathe in, what a wonderful moment. Oh, I like this. This is good. And as I breathe out, oh, wow, I'm really glad. I mean, what a nice life this is. And then
Okay,
as I
so
breathe in, these are the
that's
kind of thoughts that you will have to actually practice these, not, this is both, in fact, gladdening the mind, but at this level of it, tying it deeply with the breath like that, is also actually practicing feeling that way. That you actually do feel like, oh wow, this is so nice.
thing. Yeah, it's good to hear that that's okay to do. Like I think I played around with it, but I didn't know that it was okay to be like, oh, like I'm feeling good. I'm like I had a satisfying breath. It's like it's like okay to. I didn't know it was
Uh-huh.
okay to like kind of.
So
I don't
these
know.
are the
Think about
kind
that.
of appropriate thoughts to have then. The appropriate kind of thoughts that we have are the kind of thoughts that help get us into these great states of satisfaction, because we talk ourselves into it and we breathe our way into it and we relax our way into it. And so it naturally comes. And by the way, we also rid the mind of all of the crap that would keep us from being able to do this,
Hmm.
which is the key, because mostly our mind is so full of thoughts that we don't control, and they hinder us from being able to be in a state of real freedom. Wow, this is so nice. Wow, I really like this. Okay. All right. So that's the sukha part, and that sukha has the quality of that when we're being able to do that, for instance, there's not going to be a robber at the door. There's not going to be a king cobra on the other side of the floor. Okay, this is a time when we begin to feel really safe, really secure, that this is a state of safety. Okay, so it's actually that part of the reason why a meditation hall should be considered a safe place. It's because we go there to practice feeling safe in a place that we know with our wisdom is in fact safe.
We may have we may have thoughts that are like I don't know saying that we're unsafe, but there's the knowledge there that we're
The real position,
secure.
okay, our real view, our real knowledge, the right knowledge is that this is a safe place. So when we talk to ourselves about, oh wow, this really is a safe place, then we can get into the state of feeling like that it's safe also. We can literally talk ourselves through wisdom and knowledge and using the right kind of thought, to talk ourselves into feeling safe, to feeling secure, to feeling satisfied. And
Yeah,
that
this
word
makes a lot of sense.
satisfaction is an important word. And by the way, all of this is in the Anapanasati Sutta, but a lot of people don't dig it out to find it. Oh yeah, that's exactly what the Buddha is talking about.
Hmm.
In the Pali, the word is idiapata. The word idia actually is sometimes used in the sense of city. And in most regards like that, it means spiritual power, like diving into the earth or flying through the air or whatever like that. But these are ordinary, real powers, and believe me, they are powers. If you can get yourself into a state that you feel satisfied, you feel powerful, you feel like a winner, you walk around living your life in the perception that you can handle anything, and everybody will recognize your power. That's why this is called power. All right?
Yeah,
Things
I
what are not powerful, things that are not safe. What is not powerful, things that are insecure. What are not powerful are things that are not satisfactory.
yeah, I mean
Right?
that it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the power that the Buddha is talking about is, in fact, this sukha state that is mentioned. That get ourselves into that state to where we do feel powerful because we're a winner. We have that feeling of I can do this. That's in fact where right view turns into right attitude. The attitude is no matter how obstructed the mind gets, no matter what kind of hindrances come along, I can throw that stuff out, come back to the present moment, and see the things the way they really are. Now that takes a
That's
really strong attitude.
okay. Yeah, and so by sitting and practicing, we're able to like practice knowing that we can toss toss all the bad stuff out, and remain in a state of satisfaction. We know we can go back to that state, and so then you like cultivate that PD, like that confidence that you can do it.
Yes,
Awesome, that makes
but
a lot of sense. What?
and in a way you have to talk yourself into it. You have to say for yourself, I can do this. This is a good day. Things are really better than I thought they were. You literally can talk yourself into giving yourself the kind of attitude and the kind of feelings that you want. You can sing songs to yourself. One of them would be zippity doo dah, zippity a. My oh my, what a wonderful day.
Dang, that's yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, we can use our thoughts to. I mean, and that makes sense. Like I've experienced that. Like you can talk yourself into like these states, especially if we're doing it like skillfully in like a, in a controlled environment.
Hmm. And so it gives us a very pleasant feeling.
Hmm.
In fact, that's part of the idea of the mantras. Is it gives the mind something to do, something to think about, but it's actually something very pleasant, especially mantras like Om Namah Shivaya. Now, Om Namah Shivaya, actually the word Shiva, and Namah, and then the word Om. So it's like praise to the name in the name of Shiva. And so if
Hmm.
you're devoted to Shiva, then this is one that takes one into great ecstasy because they feel so very good about sitting there and taking their deep breaths and talking themselves into these very high states.
So, yeah, so the chanting for them would provide them with that kind of like
But for you,
environment.
Om Namah Shivaya doesn't mean a crap.
Yeah,
But for me, I would recommend in that case the mantra Coca-Cola.
yeah, it does taste pretty good.
Coca-Cola, right? I had actually what happened was is that I had a stomach ache and my mom took me to the doctor and he prescribed Coca-Cola. That was the first time I'd ever had it.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh wow, was I rolling over the moon with the Coca-Cola?
Yeah, I don't think they're prescribing that anymore. That's so funny.
Well, I can do that. In fact, when on occasions when Coca-Cola comes into the house and I have some, I always have that experience again with it, with all of the bubbles and the coolness and the ah. So, this is the kind of thing that we're looking for that we can talk ourselves into the very, very best that we can create for ourselves. That in fact this is part of why it's a skill to be developed is this feeling of I can do it, the feeling of success, the feeling that everything is satisfactory, that you've already done a good job, there's nothing left to do. So we get to a state of completeness or wholeness.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, like, I guess even if I say like, I don't know, if I were to just say like I'm a happy person, like before that, like you kind of feel your brain doing the like I don't know, changing your view slightly to like be like, oh yeah, like I am a happy person. I mean, maybe there's like a better phrase, but it does feel like we can change our view. And then we're kind of practicing that by being like,
Actually,
emphasizing.
you're making it needlessly more difficult than necessary.
Yeah.
When you say "I am a happy person," you begin to put that Salvador Dali stretching clock in there. Okay, a much better way to say it is "happy." Yeah, right now, this is good.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. You
see,
don't need
there's a
the extra
now
stuff on
notice how
top.
you feel. Just by making that distinction rather than I am a happy person, that requires, in fact, that requires some sort of authority to take it to court over and to get some sort of decision.
But if you just say
Okay,
happy or something,
that
like
I'm
yeah,
happy right now, and look at the change that you go through.
yeah, you have to feel it like a little bit. Like there's a second where your views changed at least. Thing that's really neat. I hadn't thought about that. It's like always everything I hear is like thoughts are bad. We got to get the thoughts out of there. But like I don't know. There's like one of the sense stores. I mean, and like we're trying to change our perception. We're not trying to get rid of anything at least right now.
When you have heard someone say thoughts are bad, they're only hearing part of the story. The answer is yes, some thoughts are bad and some thoughts are good, but no thoughts at all is almost tragic.
Yeah, I mean I am simplifying. I don't want to disparage like all of meditation people, but yeah,
I
it
know some
is.
people that are thoughtless, and I know how they vote.
Uh,
No, we actually do want to use that cognitive fire that we have to make those connections, to look at what's going on, to connect the dots, to see how that stuff fits together. This is what the Buddha is really all about. Is look at what you're doing. Wakey, wakey.
yeah, dang, that's crazy. That's a really I don't know. I feel like you put it together in a way where it's like starting to click a little bit better.
Great. Well, that's what I want to leave you with is that this stuff is clicking for you so that you recognize, in fact, that you can feel like a winner. That you don't have to go and practice 3 or 4 days or 3 or 4 years or 3 or 4 lifetimes. You can actually come to that within the next 5 to 10 seconds. You can tell yourself in a convincing way by taking those deep breaths and getting the body energized and getting the hindrances out. And we can say, oh, wow, this really is nice. I can do this now. I can do it again. I can
Dang it.
feel
Yeah.
really good. I can be in that third noble truth right now. Ah, wow. This is freedom from suffering. Whoop de doo.
Dang, yeah, that's a really happy message. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't wait to think about that and continue practicing this week.
Well, now, if you think about it, we have now just covered all of the factors, more or less, we've covered them, all of the factors of first jhana. Getting the hindrances out of the mind brings that satisfaction and joy. Being able to control the mind, then we're able to get ourselves into a state of joy, a state of success, a state of satisfaction. And if we continue to talk to ourselves to keep ourselves in that state, that by definition is first jhana.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I was trying to do like TMI through the jhanas, and it like felt like a couple days. Like I couldn't do it repeatedly, but yeah, I get into like a state where like the happiness just kind of like grew itself. Like if you just let it be there and you noticed it and appreciated it, like it would just kind of trickle outwards and like build. And then like I just smile and laugh and just kind of like sit there for a while. Um,
Well, maybe you can sort of keep it going, perk it up.
well, yeah, I mean, I could never do it like multiple days in a row, but it does feel like that's the direction I'm going towards. Like kind of following the things you're talking about. Like I don't know if that's Jhana or whatever. Like I don't know if technically that counts, but like yeah, it's like the happiness is easier to build and like sustain. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
interesting.
All right. Now, there's a completely different statement, just like the ones that we had picked on before. These are two different statements. One, I can do jhana. And number two is, wow, this is jhana.
Mhm.
You see the difference? Because we don't know if
Yeah,
we
there's
can
a
do jhana or not, but we do can recognize that these are the factors of jhana. I can keep the mind focused
you
on
don't.
staying in a good state.
It's this. Yeah, it's like a. It's not a thing to get. It's just a. It's just like a quality of like the, or it's like a culmination of having all the factors in the right place, and just I
And you
guess like
recognize it,
seeing what
and you can
happens.
see it, and you can enjoy the fact that you know that you feel good and that you can continue to feel good, that you can keep the mind in this state for a short time.
Dang it, yeah. I guess it just feels like the way you've been talking me through like Anapanasati is like it feels like a much more organic way to get there, as opposed to like I'm gonna get the jhana, like I've got to do steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like no, we're like gathering the factors, like we're gathering like all the qualities of like headspace or existence or like being there for the to arise
Hmm.
naturally.
Yeah, and so things work together like that. And then, in fact, we haven't even talked about all of the factors of anapanasati because some of them are all more, uh, a little more advanced. But step number one and step number three and step number five, step number six, step number nine, step number 10, and step number 13 in the sense of seeing the hindrances and throw those out, it would be step 13 and 14. So we're basically doing just two out of or half of each one of them to get
Mm-hmm.
started. The basics are to get the sati and the sukha rather and the piti, to get those factors in the process of development, so that
And
that
then
piti then becomes eventually the. There's a point you could say when piti and sukha kind of come together to be the same thing. And then he uses the word piti. But when he's talking about piti only on its own, he's also including sukha with that, so that it becomes an enlightenment factor. And what that means is unremitting. It's an unremitting enlightenment factor, which means that you can bring it up anytime you think of it. That it's unremitting. Here it comes. You just get it. It's just there for you.
dang,
So
it's crazy. It's just
but that takes skilled effort over and over and over again to practice to bring that good feelings up.
Uh, sorry, if you need to go, it's fine. I did. I just wanted to ask you, like, what is a noble? If you have a second, like, I know you brought up nobles in the past. Like, I don't know. In our first conversations, I was
The
kind of like
word
thinking about
noble
kings and
actually comes from the Pali word is Aryan, and we do know what Hitler did with the word Aryan.
yeah,
Okay, let's not do that with what he did with Aryan because he made it race and more race and super race to where the Buddha took race out of it. So that noble is not how you were born, but noble is means how you are reborn. Or the noble is now the change of lineage, that you are no longer the ruffian that you were before. Now you have been reborn in the noble tradition. And that noble tradition is the tradition of wisdom. So we live our lives according to wisdom rather than living our lives according to feelings.
okay. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. For some reason, when you first brought it up, I was like, nobles. Like, is there some like hierarchy of monks or something like that? But it's really
No,
just like the character of their spirit, the or not spirit,
no.
but like the
And in fact, the word noble is used in the sense of the Eightfold Noble Path because almost everyone practices an Eightfold Path, and the Eightfold Path is not the same as the Eightfold Noble Path. There's a big, big distinction, and I'll make that for you. Once the path becomes noble, then that means that the mind is noble. And once the mind is noble, then one becomes really dedicated to the Dhamma. That we
Okay.
change our life from being a life of I'm a carpenter or I'm a bagger or whatever like that into Dhamma. That's all there really is.
Then it's
That
the noble path,
as
because
far
we're acting out of wisdom as opposed to, or yeah,
right,
we're not acting out of like I am the carpenter, like I do these things, like I follow the eightfold path because of religion or whatnot.
right. I'm not following it because of religion or because it's a good idea. I follow it because I ain't nothing else.
Yeah,
There's
they know
really
there's an
nothing
alternative.
else.
Yeah.
It's the whole show. The Dhamma becomes the big it.
Thing. Well, thanks for
Every
clarifying.
moment we're in Dhamma,
Yeah.
and that's the noble view. I'll get around to the Dhamma tomorrow. That's an ordinary view.
Dhamma is an ordinary view.
I'll get around to the Dhamma
Oh, gotcha.
tomorrow is an ordinary view. This is Dhamma, is a
Hmm.
noble view.
Hmm.
Always this, right now. What's going on right here, right now. That's
Not
the
past or
noble way.
future, what you're thinking. Yeah.
No past, right. So people, ordinary people live in the past and the future, wanting things they don't have, etc. But if you live in the present moment, that's noble because this present moment is quite wonderful. We don't want
Yeah.
anything right now. Everything is hunky dory.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean,
No,
like,
I've never seen a hunky dory. I've seen some thin dories, but so I don't know where that phrase came from, but you know what I mean. Everything is just in Thai they say sabai sabai.
hmm,
Everything is satisfactory.
everything is satisfactory, even with pain, like physical pain.
Well, physical pain is nothing but a sensation you don't like.
Oh, okay. So it comes down to perception of that.
My, that's how perceptive of you. Yeah, so you can even have the attitude, I can handle that. That pain is nothing. I'm a big, strong Dhamma dude, and that ant bite is not going to take over my mind and make me feel bad. Or
True.
that's what.
If it's unwavering, if it's truly there, then yeah, you wouldn't suffer or you wouldn't be dissatisfied with the current state of the
Are
pain.
you are you familiar with the movie The Holy Grail?
Yeah, I've
Monty
seen it a
Python?
couple of times. Yeah.
Okay. Um, do you remember the scene where the knight is guarding the bridge?
The knight is guarding the bridge.
Right, and they cut his arm off.
Oh,
Never mind, he gets the sword in the other arm, and they cut that off, and then they cut one leg off, and then the other leg off, and there he is, a stump of a man saying, "Come back and fight like a man." You know,
okay.
that's the attitude. It don't matter what they cut the legs or the arms off or not. We're going to guard this bridge.
That's PD.
That's 50 exactly, or that's that attitude. That's that can-do attitude.
Yeah. Okay. I'll think about that when I meditate.
And then, in fact, that knife did not have hindrances. His missing arm was not a hindrance.
No. That's so funny.
So we'll leave it at that, because you do have your arms and legs left, and you can still have that kind of attitude, the can-do attitude. I can do this. I can feel that good.
Awesome. Well, thanks a ton.
So go
I'll,
try, go practice, go have
yeah,
fun,
I'll try. I'll
go
have some
enjoy
fun.
your life. We'll
Yeah.
talk to you in a few days.
All right. Bye. Have a good week.
Okay, see you.
Yeah.